Seller may have other properties to sell or even lend money once you prove you pay on time. A friend of mine, Frank, owns a bunch of properties in Atlanta. He bought a property in Virginia Highlands. Anybody that knows Atlanta, it's kind of a yuppie area. And it was a house that was set up as a duplex, but it was zoned triplex. Triplexes were allowed in the area. It had an extra couple of rooms on the back. He figured all he had to do was add a bath and another entryway and wire it for triplex, and he'd have a triplex. So he bought the home with owner financing from a 76-year-old lady. He added the extra room. He rented it out for about a year and a half, and he sold it. So he calls the lady up and he says, you know, I'm selling the property. I told you I'd only be holding it a couple of years, and we need a payoff for the closing. So she gives the attorney the payoff. She gets her money. She calls Frank up and says, Frank, you got time to go to lunch? He said, yeah, I'll do that. So he meets her for lunch. They sit, they talk, and she says, Frank, can you use $750,000? He said, well, what are the terms? She said, well, here are the requirements. Any property that you want to put it on, I need an appraisal. You can go up to 80% of whatever that appraisal is. You've got to have a 30-year terms. So you pay it out over 30 years. You can't pay off early. If you want to move the mortgage to another property, you do that. But once the money is out, you just got to pay every month. 7.5% interest rate, fixed for 30 years. Now, is this a lady that's optimistic about the future? Well, he talked to her a little while longer, and he found out why she wanted 30-year terms. She had 3 spendthrift children, and she knew that if she left that money to them, it was going to be all gone very shortly. But at least them getting it in dribs and drabs over a period of time, she knew maybe they would be able to hold on to some of it. So you don't ever assume you know what somebody else is thinking. And, you know, Frank has been using her money now for, I guess it's been about 10 or 12 years. I lost a very good borrower there. To negotiate financing, you need to be professional. You need to know what you're doing. You need to learn and hone your negotiating skills. You know, go pick up the old Roger Dawson books, Tom Hopkins, all the old negotiators. And they talk about negotiating all kinds of things, but it's applicable to negotiating on real estate. Okay? And if you need somebody to practice on your spouse. That's a great place. Get something we want.
Get something you want.
Be sympathetic. Spend time understanding the other party's needs. Sympathetic doesn't mean you're feeling sorry for someone. You want to be sympathetic to their position. And the only way you can do that is taking time to understand their position, to understand their situation. My friend Pete Fortunatus, I've seen him go through a house. I've been with him before. And he doesn't even talk about the house. He says, oh, I see your kids play soccer. You know, what team do they play on? You know, my cousin's got a son that plays somewhere near there. I wonder if they play together. You know, he makes a little small talk to find out who these people are, what they need, what is their hot button. You know, by the way, negotiations are not always win-win. You know, we'd like for it to be win-win, but sometimes it's a win-lose. When is it win-lose? Let's say both of you are locking heads on price. That's win-lose. Remember the gentleman I told you about at the beginning? You know, he wanted his $60,000 and I wanted $40-something thousand. Well, when I got off that concentration on the 40-something thousand and said, how can I make it effectively 40,000? We started negotiating and making a deal. We wouldn't have if we'd have kept at the $60,000 level, and then that's it. So you got to understand what people need, what their hot button is. I had another house that I bought. A gentleman had moved to Ohio, and he had a nice little 3-2 house, had a swimming pool out back, which I don't like, so therefore it would be a flipper house. And so I asked the gentleman, I said, you know, what can we do? And he said, well, I keep thinking I'm going to come down there and fix it up and put it on the market, and it should sell in the low hundreds. And I said, well, obviously you haven't been able to do that for a year and a half now, and there's a lot of fix-ups got to be done. We settled on $2,000 above the mortgage balance of $70,000. I took the mortgage balance subject to it, fixed up the house and sold it, made a good profit out of it. What was his hot button? Quit paying that monthly mortgage. Get this house off of his hands. My hot button was getting it at a price that I could resell it and make a profit.